Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. Friday. In case you guys didn't hear, we are now on lockdown. LA is now on lockdown, meaning we cannot leave our houses anymore just for the safety of everybody. So, I decided to call in some of our friends and let's see if we can catch her. Yeah, that's right. Elastigirl's here to come and save us, just in case things get crazy. But yes, make sure we're still staying safe. Our health is the most important thing right now. But here we go. What's up, guys? So, quick review. Yesterday we talked about the Hundred Years' War and how we had this really cool girl named Joan of Arc who came and saved the French. The Hundred Years' War was just a battle for power between two kings who decided that they're just gonna fight it out until one of them wins and gets the throne. It lasted forever, but one thing that was cool about this war was that we saw a lot of different shifts in power. We saw the kings in England lose power and the parliament gain power, and then we also see the French kings gaining power because they had each other's back during the battles, and people wanted to support that type of king. So that was like one of the most important things from the Hundred Years' War. But before that, let's get started and we'll review the questions. So number one, how did the governments of England and France change after the war? Don't forget, after the war ended, a lot of things changed. In England, Parliament gained more power because Parliament gained more power and the king lost power. The reason why Parliament gained power was because the kings needed Parliament's approval. So the Parliament were the ones making decisions because they were the people. So they had a lot of power in that government. In France, the king rose to power and the kings got more power because the kings supported the war and they were fighting with the people, so the people liked that and they wanted to support that king. Two, who rallied the French troops during the Hundred Years' War? The person who rallied the troops was a really strong woman named Joan of Arc. She was the one that rallied the troops, and although she was captured, she was responsible for pretty much kicking out a lot of the English people from France. Number three, how did the Magna Carta affect the way kings ruled outside of England? The Magna Carta really didn't affect any way the kings ruled outside of England. The only thing that changed was the king's rule in England because all they cared about was the king in England. Other countries, the kings were still had a lot of power. They're still doing whatever they wanted to do. So today we're going to talk about this thing. It's kind of ironic. We are going to talk about the Black Death. This is something that I've talked to you guys about before, and this is almost kind of similar to what's going on right now with the coronavirus, except the Black Death was a lot more dangerous than what the coronavirus is. So back then they didn't have medicine. They didn't have a lot of hospitals. They didn't have things to treat people. And when this thing called the Black Death came, it pretty much wiped out a whole bunch of people. So the Black Death, it's a deadly plague that swept through Europe between 1347 and 1351. And this Black Death was pretty much this plague that came all the way from, if you guys remember, China. Just like the coronavirus, how it started in China, the Black Death also is believed to start in China and was spread through everywhere across the Silk Road. Because if you remember, the Silk Road connected China all the way to Europe. And traders were not only trading ideas, but they're trading goods, trading germs as well. And what they think was that when they were trading all this stuff, rats were getting into the things that they were trading, and the rats were carrying this disease. So they think that it came from Asia, and it was brought by the traders to these Mediterranean ports. One thing about this thing was the bubonic plague was extremely dangerous. And symptoms of the bubonic plague was people used to get these swellings or bulbs on their body that would appear on the bodies. One way I can describe it to you is if you ever seen the movie Harry Potter and when they take the polyjuice potion, when they take the polyjuice potion, their body starts to bubble and the bubbling starts to go on their skins. And that's exactly what the bubonic plague looked like. People's bodies were getting bubbles on it. It just looked like huge like pimples or warts all over their bodies, but it was painful. And this was extremely dangerous because it could be passed by air. So it was airborne. And what was crazy is that you can die from the bubonic plague in less than 1 day. So if you got it, you're pretty much dead. Very similar to the coronavirus, it is spreading by air. This is why we got to be careful. Even though the symptoms aren't bad, we still need to be careful because this is also sweeping through the U.S. So, moving on, this plague was so deadly that it killed millions of people throughout Europe and millions of people throughout the world. Um, Villages were completely wiped out. People did not know what was going on because all of a sudden people were just dying left and right. The doctors that were there, they didn't know how to treat it. People didn't know what to do because they were dead in less than a day. So this Black Plague was so deadly that it killed over a third of Europe's population. About 50 million people died within this like 3 or 4 year span. And this was a huge toll on everybody because all these people had jobs just like here. They all had responsibilities and everyone relied on each other. But with 50 million people dead, that's horrible. That's like if all of LA and some, or double the population in LA, all was gone because LA is like 20 million. So just think of all those people dead and gone. What would happen? Like, what were all the jobs? Where would all the people get their food? It was just horrible. So as a result of all these people dying, a lot of the manor systems fell apart because, like I said, there was nobody working on these farms anymore. Everyone was gone or leaving the area. So what happened was the people that were still alive, they began to get paid a whole lot more because they were the only ones that were there. So these peasants and serfs began to get paid for their labor, and eventually, when they got enough money, they were able to move into the cities. But overall, this Black Death was horrible, and it devastated Europeans' population and the way everything was working, like their manor systems. So as a quick review, we talked about the Black Death. It's like I said, it's very ironic that we're talking about the Black Death because it's very similar to the coronavirus. It was global. It affected the population. It affected how people, the economy. It affected how people are living. Just like look at us now, like we're doing these online videos right now. So really quick, the Black Plague was something that swept through Europe, wiped out populations, wiped out villages, wiped out 50 million people. A third of the whole population was gone. And this virus or this death was so deadly that it killed people in less than 1 day, which is really scary. Um, and because of this Black Death, when it swept through everywhere, it hurt the manor systems, it hurt the economy, it hurt the population, and it took a really long time for all this population to get back, for all these crops to come back, for the trade to come back. So Europe was in a bad situation during that time. Just think of like how China is and how Italy is right now, how the U.S. is. We're on lockdown right now. Europe, it was on lockdown for a few years after because everybody was wiped out. Um, that's kind of like how the Black Death had a huge impact on everybody. So for homework, I want you to answer these 3 questions. What effects did the bubonic plague have in Europe? Where did Europe, where in Europe did the bubonic plague first appear? And why do you think the Black Death was able to spread so quickly through Europe? So today is Friday. Fridays are awesome, like Carl Zeus was saying. And I just wanted to make sure that everything was good. So I'm going to check in with you guys during the Zoom session in a little bit when we'll talk there. But for today's video, I had to give a special shout out to the one and only Jade and also Kevin Servin. This video was for you. So shout outs to you guys. And I hope all you guys are well. And if you guys want to shout out, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. Peace.